My name is Marcus. I go by OT Picks. Welcome to the channel. This is the first video I'll ever be posting, so I kind of wanted to before I get into the predictions, I wanted to explain how this works. So you guys are probably wondering who I am, but if you clicked on this video, you're probably in the right place because I'm not lying about that almost 85% prediction rate and the near 20-4 record. These are my predictions, a couple of predictions I've made in the past few weeks, and I was actually supposed to have a video out last week, but then I kind of made it too late and I forgot to post it. But we did really good on last week's card as well. I obviously watch a lot of UFC, and we do things a little bit differently on this channel. We are not predicting to try to make money, and that sounds crazy. I like to predict to have the most accurate prediction possible and to not lose a bet. So you may not see a crazy plus 2,000 parlay, even though I did hit one recently, which I'm actually gonna throw up right here. You're not gonna see some crazy 14,000 cycle, but what you will see is usually what I aim to do, a 2x or 3x every week that more than not hits pretty much every week. Like currently we are beating the casinos, right guys? So how much money you want to throw on that, that's up to you guys. And I'm not going to pretend to know about every fight. If I do think I have insights, I'll talk about the fight. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to pretend like I know everything about every fight. But recently, I haven't missed a single card. I've watched every single card this year. I watch a lot of UFC, guys. It basically replaces my YouTube at this point. But that's not why you guys are here. Let's get into the main card. Will Yuri Prochazka's weirdness be sustainable throughout 5 rounds? Will he be able to beat Carlos Ulberg's technical striking? Now, this is the fight that a lot of people are going back and forth on. Before we even get started, as you guys can see, I have Yuri by 4th round spinning back fist. Why do I say this? Well, Carlos Ulberg has really sharp counters, right? Like he's going to sort of slide out of range, and he's going to catch you with that check hook as soon as you're not ready for it. I don't think that Yuri is the type of guy who's going to lose to a check hook. And that sounds crazy because I've seen a lot of people saying the opposite, like his unorthodox style and like him just floating into range is not going to be good for a guy like Carlos Ulberg. But I think if your only method to victory is a check hook, I don't think you're going to get it done. It's hard to bet against these city kickboxing guys who are going to fight a really clean, technical sort of fight that goes all the way to the decision mostly. And even though Carlos Ulberg has a lot of first-round finishes, so does our man here, Yuri Prochazka. He's got real power, and he's a threat that's, you have to respect. So I believe that in this fight, I do think it'll go longer than people expect it to go. And I do also think that Yuri's going to do a really good job not slipping directly into those counters. And I think it might go longer because it might end up being more of a feint match, right? But we've all seen Yuri fight, and we know what type of guy he is. He's the guy who's just going to keep on coming after you round after round, seeming like he's not getting tired. And maybe you dodge the spinning elbow in the first round, right? And he throws some weird flying knee feint into an overhand feint into a look away, and then the spinning elbow just catches you the second round, and he's finding ways to set it up in the third and then the fourth, and you're just dealing with traps. Your central nervous system's getting tired, you're not responding to feints as quickly, and if you're a guy like Carlos Ulberg, some wonder, is he going to be able to go the 5-round distance? I personally don't think so. Even though City Kickboxing will have him very well prepared, I think Yuri is the guy who loves to bring people into deep waters, right? And if we look at the difference in competition, who has Yuri Prochazka fought and lost to? Alex Pereira. That's basically it if you think about who he's really lost to in the division. Other than that, he's wiping the floor with everybody else, and I do believe that he will be lifting light heavyweight gold this weekend. I think it's going to be a little bit too much for Carlos Ulberg to deal with, even though that 13-1 record looks very, very nice. And even though he's been someone who's a difficult problem to figure out. I think Yuri has more ways to win. I think it could be earlier. I could see an earlier knockout for sure. But really, unless Carlos Ulberg is able to hit that early check hook or fight a really, really clean technical fight the whole way through, I think this is going to either be a Yuri decision, actually, or a late finish. Alright, for the co-main event coming in at light heavyweight, we have Azamat Murzakanov versus Paulo Costa. Alright, and as you guys can see, I have what appears to be Paulo Costa's face, and I know most people are usually on two sides of the Paulo Costa train, right? They either think, oh, yeah, he's a real pretty looking guy, but he actually does have the skill, and a lot of other people are like, oh, he's just a pretty face, he's not that great. This is very few people, and I am a believer that Paulo Costa is a great fighter. However, if we look at the history of Paulo Costa and the history of Azamat Murzakanov, here's the problem, alright? Azamat is basically unfadable at this point. He's got 16 wins and 0 losses. Okay, he's an absolute menace, knocking out almost everybody in his path. And aside from the serious power that he carries in his hands, okay, it really is past the point of just that right hand, right? Now, I see a lot of these guys with big power, right? Even like a Rizvan Kuniev, you know they want to land that power shot. And Azamat's no different. He wants to land that power shot. But even with what we've seen in his past fights in an open stance matchup where it's a lot more difficult to land that power shot from the backside, he's able to adjust and knock people out with his front hand. So that power translates between both hands, and he's going to find a way to land it at least one time throughout the fight. It seems like he kind of edges through. He might even be losing the first round, but he finds a way to land that punch, and he just puts people's lights out. That's something we want to see from a light heavyweight. He's light on the feet, bouncing around very quick, and no discredit to Paulo Costa, who's also very fast despite his build, right? He's got pretty decent reflexes and speed. He's also going to have the lighter man's skill, but I think that this fight just favors Azamat to build him up in this division, especially because we see that Paulo Costa is moving up from light heavyweight, which isn't something that I've seen a lot of people mention. When you have a guy who's just fast at a 185 and now he's moving up to light heavyweight, I don't know how fast he's going to be. And another mention is that one of his only losses in light heavyweight, which is to Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori is obviously also a guy, who has some power in his hands. And when you take a guy like Azamat, he's just going to have even more power. So I think it's going to be more difficult than people think for Costa. I know a lot of people think that lighter man's skill is just going to translate up and he's going to be able to come away with a decision win, which I think is also possible, right? But I do think that Azamat is more than just a big power guy, right? Like, he's very light on the feet. He uses the jab to set up. He has wrestling takedown defense. So I think really wherever this fight goes, he'll be fine, and he's going to be able to find his shots, which will eventually, I think, put Mr. Costa out in round 2. However, every time I faded Costa, I can't lie, he fucks up my parlay sometimes, guys. I don't like betting on Paulo Costa. There's not a lot from him, even though he's a skilled fighter, that I feel like, yeah, Paulo Costa. But, the guy has fought a lot of good competition, and he hasn't lost a lot. But I do think that this is going to be another win under Azamat's record, because if you have a guy who's very light and very good at playing distance and staying away, then maybe, that changes a little bit. But I don't think Paulo Costa is that guy. Is he going to be like the Israel Adesanya who can stay on the outside? Is he going to be one of those guys who's like that technical at playing the range? I don't know, man. Imagine if you were on the Paulo Costa side of things and you could have been betting on that Azamat knockout and then you kind of missed it. I've seen Paulo Costa fight. He's not bad at all. I can't bet on him here. Oh, ooh. All right. I was struggling trying to make a pick for this fight because Mr. Curtis Blaydes is technically skilled. I think he might even be a little more technically skilled than Josh Hokett. And Josh Hokett, the real question is he that good, right? This is a guy who hasn't really fought a very high level of competition yet. He's knocked out Denzel Freeman. Who really is Denzel Freeman, right? I know Denzel Freeman is not a pushover, right? He used to be a Marine. I know who Denzel Freeman is, basically, right? Not a bad fighter by any means, but it's just not near the level of competition that we've seen from Curtis Blaydes. Curtis Blaydes, people are forgetting this guy not too long ago was in a title fight against Tom Aspinall. We all saw how that ended, but then he also fought Rizvan Kuniev, in which he was able to pull away kind of a decision robbery. So, Curtis Blaydes is definitely up there. He's a good fighter. He's not slow by any means. If you watch Curtis Blaydes, he's not a super slow guy, right? But Josh Hokett moves like a light heavyweight, maybe even a middleweight. He's so unbelievably quick for the division. The fact that he's in heavyweight is honestly crazy. I could see him in middleweight. I could see him in light heavyweight. The fact that he's in heavyweight moving this quick is going to be his biggest strength. How Josh Hokett wins this fight is he stays out of damaging punches, and he needs to close the range extremely quickly, which his football background should help him with, right? But when you look at a guy like Josh Hokett, he has got power in the hands. It's not super crazy power in my opinion. It's not Tom Aspinall power. That's not what I'm comparing it to. But we've seen Curtis Blaydes struggle with guys who are more athletic, with guys who are fast, right? Even with how Tom was outstriking him on the feet. The question here is, will Curtis Blaydes be able to get him down? Rizvan Kuniev. Rizvan Kuniev is a guy who had pretty good wrestling, especially coming from where he's coming from, and what's truth is Curtis Blaydes was able to get him down pretty easily. But the thing is that, will Curtis Blaydes be able to do that whole fight? I don't think so. Curtis Blaydes, despite the amount of knockouts on his record, is a guy who will sit kind of by the fence. He'll stay in those prolonged wrestling exchanges. He'll stay in the kind of, he's a fence maxer. Sometimes, let's be honest, he's a fence maxer sometimes, right? So I was really bouncing between the picks a lot in this case, and I really do think that Curtis Blaydes is somebody who, even though he definitely has a path to victory, it's just so hard, especially in this division, to fade the guy who's going to be more athletic, more quick, faster. I do favor Hokett in this matchup, especially in a 3-round bout. If it was 5 rounds, it might change my mind because Curtis Blaydes has been the distance, right? And Curtis Blaydes might have better cardio. Josh Hokett's cardio has been questionable. He looked tired at the end of round 1 with Denzel Freeman, but he was trying to get him out of there. So coming from the gym that he's coming from, which is Jackson Winks, obviously, right? And having the good wrestling that he does, I don't think that Curtis Blaydes can hold him with submission or wrestling threat necessarily. I think he'll be able to, get up out of those situations and stay out of the way of Curtis Blaydes' punches. I think the speed is going to be too much for him to deal with. That being said, I could see a Curtis Blaydes decision because there are things we haven't seen from Josh Hokett yet. Even if you look at his regional scene, right? Is his cardio really the greatest? And those shorter arms as well. While it is a blessing, sometimes it's going to be difficult with a guy like Curtis Blaydes who's going to try to, maybe keep the distance. However, I'm probably going to go with a Josh Hokett KO. I think he'll probably run at him. I don't think Curtis is going to be ready for it. And I do think that he'll be able to touch the chin of Curtis Blaydes. Is Josh Hokett a wild man who sometimes looks like he's diving forward like DDP? Yeah, that's truth, right? If you watch his film. But I think that Josh Hokett, he's going to come in there. He's going to throw a bunch of overhands. He's going to be too quick. It's almost going to be like that Tom Aspinall fight. But I think it'll go a little bit later than that just because maybe Curtis will be able to do the wrestling. And, he's not a 6'4" giant man like Tom Aspinall is. So, that being said, I'm choosing the faster man who I believe has lighter man skill. We're going with Josh Hokett. I believe probably maybe a round 2 knockout, could be round 1. And if it goes past round 2, fully expect it to go to a decision, right? He's going to gas out. But the UFC clearly loves this guy. They love his personality. They love what he's about. He's 8-0, which is obviously a great record, but he doesn't have a serious amount of like a big resume, and he's already being kind of speed ran through the UFC. So that tells me that even if it does make a decision, unless it's a very clear decision for Mr. Blaydes over here, he's going to have to do more to win the fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if the refs just gave it to Hokett, because this is somebody they want to push up in the UFC heavyweight division to kind of save the division, I guess. So we're going to go with the boy, Josh Hokett. Next, we have Cub Swanson. An absolute unk matchup. Here's the thing, right? Cub Swanson, there's a lot to like from Cub Swanson, but he's old as fuck, okay? Let's just be real here. Is Nate the guy to take him out? No. And do I ever bet on retirement fights? Last week I did with Michael Chiesa, or 2 weeks ago, but very rarely do I ever touch retirement fights. I think when a fighter kind of has their foot half out the door, it's difficult to put your money on them. Ignore the notes because I did not update them for this fight. That was from the last fight. But for this fight, I think it would be safe to choose Cub Swanson. I think he's the better fighter. And if Nate was, a lot younger, or if he was a different guy who had more speed, more power, and could be, I think I could see then Cub losing to somebody like that. But here, there's a lot to like even from Cub's coaching, right? He's got a lot of fight IQ. He knows how to play the game. He's been here forever. And this retirement fight, I think he'll be able to get it done sort of in a Michael Chiesa sort of fashion, right? Even look at all of his projects that are in the UFC. You look at a Danny Silva. I mean, that guy's nasty, bro. So Cub no doubt knows what he's doing, and if this is the last run for him, I would be very happily putting my money on Cub. And I don't even think that Nate really has that much of a youth advantage to where I'm like, let's bet on him. Like, the guy's 38. He's also an old man himself. He's not really going to have a speed advantage, I don't think, right? So if he's maybe younger in those 36, 34 sort of areas, then I could consider it. But I think Cub has everything that you need to win this fight. And, unless he's looking absolutely washed like Mike Tyson, then he won't be able to get it done. But I don't see that. I see him as a Jan Blachowicz type of guy who's still able to fight old and still able to put in the work and still able to get to a decision victory. I don't think there will be a knockout. I think if there's a knockout, it'll be very late into the rounds, maybe round 3, or any sort of finish at all. So, yeah, I'll take Cub Swanson for money line. Alright, if you guys are anything like me, you saw this fucking matchup and you were like, what the fuck? You looked at this and you wondered if the matchmakers were either high, drunk, or both. And you know what? When I look at this fight, I'm excited for it. And I think that this fight is going to go to the Walker side of things. Here's why. We look at a guy like Dominic Reyes, whose chin isn't great. And we look at a guy like Johnny Walker, whose chin is also terrible, right? And in this case scenario, though I think this matchup will actually be slightly more technical than people expect it to be, I do think that Johnny Walker is going to win off pure athleticism. When you have a guy who's sharper, faster, more athletic, I don't think Dominic Reyes is going to stand a chance here. We look at Dominic Reyes, and he is the Dominic Reyes of old. Some people are thinking about the guy who, was able to take John Jones to a decision, and a lot of people are thinking about that version of Dominic Reyes. They're thinking about the Dominic Reyes who of old, the Dominic Reyes of gold, the Dominic Reyes who was able to be a technical warrior and put on amazing performances. Guys, this is Dominic Reyes towards the tail end of his career. This is the Dominic Reyes who's looking, honestly, a little bit, out of shape. So here, I'm going to have to choose the younger guy. I'm going to have to choose the guy who, is really out there having fun in the ring. The guy who's going to throw a flying knee out of nowhere. And all you really need to do is just jab him. And we've seen that happen before. So I think it's very difficult to choose either of them here. But if you had to lean aside, I think I would take Johnny Walker. And I don't think it's going to be particularly close either. They're around the same age, one could argue. But we've seen people who've been washed at 33. Take Chito Vera, right? We've seen guys who've been washed way before 38, 37, 35. So a guy like Dominic Reyes, who's in this stage of his career, I think it's going to be very difficult to lean on his side. Though we could make it a technical matchup. Maybe he still got it. Maybe this is the comeback win for Dominic Reyes. I don't think it is. I think Johnny Walker is going to have his time in there. He's going to have fun. And we're going to see later than expected KO from Johnny Walker. I don't think it'll be in the first round. I'm leaning towards second, third round, and that's just how I am usually unless I'm very confident in a first round knockout. I just don't think they're going to go with their guns blazing like people think they will. I'm going to absolutely take this fight, probably to not go the distance, just considering their chins. But I'm absolutely going to lean with Johnny Walker on this one. Aaron the Chin Pico versus what's frankly a very, very old Patricio Pitbull. And it's funny because if you really squint your eyes, they almost look kind of like the same fighter. But what we're looking at here with Aaron Pico and Patricio Pitbull is we see Aaron Pico, who's a guy who's obviously very high level, 29, but don't let the age just fool you because he's got a lot of high-level Bellator experience. He's been in there for a while, and he knows the fight game, right? He's a born boxer, very sharp hands, forward pressure striker who also has good wrestling, right? What Aaron's going to want to do and what you're going to see him do is keep that distance very close. He's going to want to get into pocket exchanges. He's going to rip that left body hook, that beautiful left body hook when you least expect it. And he's going to stay kind of in your face the whole time. On paper, I absolutely love Aaron Pico winning this fight. I think he's going to be better. I think he's going to be faster. He's going to be stronger. Now, where is the problem in Aaron Pico's game? That is with his chin, right? He is in a rush to get it out of there, right? It's not quite Terrence McKinney level, but he is going to put on the pressure. It's going to be quick, and he's going to try to look for that round 1 knockout. Last time out, I was on Lerone Murphy, and I made the right call there. He hit that spinning elbow, but before that, me and a lot of other bettors were probably stressing our ass off. I don't want him to stay on the ground for too long with a guy like Pitbull, who, is experienced basically everywhere it goes. But I think the younger man is going to win this fight. Now, if you guys really care, you can absolutely check my document of research and notes and film study on why I think Kevin Holland is going to win this fight. And this might sound absolutely crazy, but I really do have Kevin Holland winning this week. I think locked in Kevin Holland is going to be too much of a problem for Randy Brown. And I know people aren't necessarily willing to put their faith into Kevin Holland. But the reason I think he's going to win is you have Kevin Holland, who's a guy who, if you really look at who he's lost to, he's fought a lot higher level of competition than a guy like Randy Brown. Randy Brown has had problems being chinned before, right? We've seen him get knocked out, and he's used to fighting as the longer guy. This is something I haven't seen a lot of people talk about, but if you compare the two, he's used to fighting as the longer guy. Kevin Holland is going to be the longer guy in this matchup. He's coming in at an 81-inch reach, and I think Randy Brown's is around a 78, so a 4 to 3-inch reach advantage. And, you know, Randy Brown really likes to do this thing where when he slides out of range, he kind of frames a little bit and he's going to slide right out of range. And that's going to work really well against guys who are shorter than him when you have a Dos Santos or when you have somebody like a guy who's going to have to close the distance and kind of throw that overhand at the same time. Locked in Kevin Holland is a very good Kevin Holland. Are we really putting Randy Brown up next to guys like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson? It's like, you can check the Tapology. Are we putting him with those level of guys? Because if not, I really think Kevin Holland is the perfect gatekeeper who's going to knock a guy like Randy Brown out. So I don't think it'll happen particularly fast. I can't see maybe a round one. I know Randy Brown is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but I honestly think that, Kevin Holland's going to be more crafty and elusive on the feet and on the ground. He's never not a threat, right? I think we're going to see a Kevin Holland masterclass, a vintage performance here. And Randy Brown has never been good against guys his size when it comes to speed or length, losing to Brian Battle or yeah, give me Kevin Holland on this fight this weekend. Alright, for the next fight, I'm honestly surprised at what the odds are. Right now, you can pick up Tatiana Suarez for a crazy value price of minus 150. Alright, and if we look at Tatiana Suarez, yes, she may be getting older, and if we look at Lupi Godinez, there is some stuff to like from the hands of Lupi Godinez. But if we actually watch film, are her hands that good? Are we treating her like a Canelo Alvarez here, guys? I don't think so. I think Tatiana Suarez is going to easily get this done by hugging her, taking her down, and doing what she does best, which is her wrestling. Who does she lose to? Zhang Wei Li. Maybe Verna Jandiroba can hang in there, right, with the wrestling. But we've seen it last week with Verna, and we've seen it before. Whenever there's a female fighter who's going to be able to control the wrestling, we are absolutely putting the house and slamming the money on her. Would I have her for a finish? Absolutely not. But she has subbed high-level competition before, right? So I would not hate a Tatiana late round sub. I do not hate that at all. I think a safe bet here is going to be decision or sub to coast to an easy victory, or just take the money line. It's not really offering much for taking that KO, and on the off chance that she ground and pounds, or maybe she's feeling a little spicy on the feet after controlling the rounds I think this is going to be the easiest Tatiana Suarez money line we've ever looked at, guys. For minus 150, you can pair this up with a Kevin Holland, you can pair this up with an Aaron Pico, you can pair this up even with a Yuri Prohaska if you're feeling spicy. All I'm going to say here is this may be probably one of the best places for value on the card. I think there's dogs on this card that we can go for, but at that sort of pick'em type of odds, Lupi Godinez is not the dog we are going to go for. I think Tatiana Suarez is going to shoot her takedowns. She's going to get it very easily. That's about as much as I need to say about this fight. Side note on this fight is this girl is from Vancouver, okay, and that is my home city. I almost never fade any fighters from Vancouver or BC in general. Like Lance Gibson Jr., literally nobody had him to win. He was like a plus 300, but I really did my research and I was really like, okay, I could actually see Lance winning here. I was obviously a little bit biased because he was from my hometown, but I was like, yeah, we're gonna bet Lance here. I can't see Lupi Godinez winning here, unfortunately. As much as I want to say, like, yeah, let's tail her, like, it's just going to be impossible here. I would take Tatiana by hugs. Everybody should be putting their money on Charles Radke this weekend. Why do I say that? First of all, almost every one of your favorite predictors will have this guy, and it's for good reason. Blockhead on the right here cannot fight, bro. He's okay, he's not UFC worthy, bro. I can't even lie. What you're gonna see from Francisco a lot is he's gonna try to throw really wide, kind of like heavy punches. Like he's really just trying to knock you out, and then boom, he's gonna miss. He's gonna start shelling up. He'll do this. He'll do this. He'll do a lot of that, and I really think that Charles Radke is just gonna have his way with him. He's fought way higher level competition. He's the more skilled fighter. He can pick him apart, on the feet. Uh, Francisco can try to take him down. I mean, I just think that Radke is going to win this. Probably by decision. I don't know if he has the most knockout power, even though he does have knockouts. But if you look at who he's lost to, it's nobody that you should be ashamed of losing to, right? Like, Nita Carlos Prates famously lost to Mike Malott. So if you look at the guys he's losing to, they're not super like low level competition guys. Versus if you guys look at the guys Francisco is looking to, and I know this is MMA math, but he's losing to Jake Matthews. He's losing to Daniel Zellhuber, who I may be the biggest Daniel Zellhuber hater, but I never thought he was that good. I don't see what everybody else sees. Zellhuber fights a pretty fight up until he loses. So, guys just losing to everybody in the book, okay? Jamie Mullarkey. Come on, guys. Jamie Mullarkey. He's going to win this fight. I'm very confident in this bet. I would have him as a safe leg for sure. Yeah, this fight is probably going to go the decision, I would guess. The 12 years older guy, and you very rarely see me picking the guy who's older. I think this is a young man's game, but in this case, he needs to get out of the UFC, bro. Alright, now for the section you guys have all been waiting for, right? What is going to be my bets for the week? What are going to be my predictions for the week? So what I have here is a little three-legger. I'm unfortunately putting my money on Kevin Holland, and he could come up short. I could absolutely see that happening. Kevin Holland is a very difficult guy to bet on, but I am hopefully praying that Kevin Holland is going to break the Kevin Holland streak with the 2-2-1 win, 2-2-1 win. I think Gamrot replaced that for Kevin Holland. You can even take Radke. You take Radke, replace him for Kevin Holland. So I'm not saying tail to Kevin Holland. I'm not even saying tail me at all. These are just my predictions from somebody who's frequently winning, and there are a couple of other betting opportunities you can take, right? Let's check what the over on rounds is for Yuri, because I bet you the over on rounds is not too bad. Over rounds, not horrible. Over rounds on Yuri is not even a horrible take, dude, because I don't think Alberg gets out of there so, like, that quick. But with that being said, that wraps up the video. So I hope you guys make money this week. I hope I make money this week. Good luck to you all.